If he was expecting the reception that greeted most of his papers, he will have been disappointed. This one was given a frosty reception. Yet none of the skeptics went public with their criticisms, with one prominent exception, the eccentric philosopher-astrophysicist Herbert Dingle. For him, the job of the theorist was to find laws based on experimental measurements, just as Dirac had done in quantum mechanics. Dingle spoke for many a more timid colleague when he wrote an article in Nature that condemned the pseudoscience of invertebrate cosmethology and regretted that Dirac was one of the latest victims of the great universe mania. Stung into a quick reply, Dirac repeated his earlier reasoning almost word for word after prefixing his remarks with an uncontroversial comment about the nature of science. The successful development of science requires a proper balance to be maintained between the method of building up from observations and the method of deducing by pure reasoning from speculative assumptions. In the same issue of Nature, Dingle resumed his offensive, stressing that he was not attacking Dirac personally. I cited Professor Dirac's letter not as a source of infection, but as an example of the bacteria that can flourish in a poisoned atmosphere. In a pure environment, it would have not come to birth, and we should still have the old, incomparable Dirac. Dirac was not deterred. However, after he had written at length about the implications of his hypothesis in a long paper, completed shortly after Christmas 1937, he returned to quantum mechanics and did not revisit the hypothesis for another 35 years. Although his idea influenced astronomers in the 1930s, many of Dirac's peers regarded it as an aberration, joining Bohr in believing that Dirac had made a wrong move towards Eddington and Milne's quasi-mystical cosmology. But his status did not suffer significantly. In October, the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton was still seeking to recruit the world's best theoretical physicists, and put Dirac at the top of the list of the scientists they wanted to recruit, just above Pauly. Back in Bristol, Charles Dirac had left a surprise for his family. Solicitors found, after months of delving through his accounts, that he had been a serial tax evader. The authorities required Flo to pay 6 years of Charles's tax debt, the minimum they were allowed to reclaim, after making her swear affidavits that she knew nothing of his deception. "No one knows how Pa managed to elude income tax on so many items," she wrote to Dirac, who had heard that his father had claimed £50 a year tax relief for educating Betty at university, while his son paid the bills. But the nastiest revelation for Dirac was still to come, when he learned that the funds that enabled him to begin his studies at Cambridge had been provided not by his father, but by the local education authority. Charles had pretended that he had stumped up the money. This petty and unpleasant deception was for Dirac the final straw. It negated everything that his father had done to nurture his career, and revealed Charles in his true colours. And this is why Paul Dirac told his closest friends, including Kurt Hoffer, that he owed his father absolutely nothing. It was an understandable, if harsh, judgment.